The late Cretaceous sun was not merely hot. It was an oppressive, physical weight that pressed down on the sodden floodplains of what would one day be North America. Yet, the most terrifying shadow cast upon this ancient landscape did not belong to the towering thunderclouds threatening the horizon, nor did it belong to the Tyrannosaurus stalking the cypress edges. The shadow belonged to Etherid was a monstrosity of biological engineering, the absolute pinnacle of pterosaur evil. It was a Quetzalcoatlus Northropy, standing on the muddy bank of a sluggish river, folded up. He stood 18 feet tall, at the shoulder the height of a bull giraffe. He was a creature composed of impossibly thin bone, stiffened leather, and a burning metabolic furnace designed for one singular purpose: to conquer gravity. Right now, however, he was on the ground, and on the ground, even a god is vulnerable. This was the eternal dichotomy of his existence, the hook that defined his every waking moment. In the air, he was untouchable, a silent assassin occupying a throne above the clouds. On T-ground he was awkward, a vast scaffolding of delicate limbs that a charging triceratops could shatter like dry twigs. Every second spent folding his 38-foot wingspan was a second spent rolling dice with extinction. He was hunting, his head terrifyingly large and tipped with a 9-foot spear-like beak, swiveled with mechanical precision. His vision was telescopic, able to discern the twitch of a flank from 2 miles away. He was not a clumsy vulture waiting for scraps. He was a terrestrial stalker. He moved on all fours, his massive folded wings serving his front legs, walking with a stiff, stilt-like gait that was surprisingly swift. He resembled a nightmare vision of a stork, scaled up to horrific proportions. The vibration came first, through a sensitive feet. A juvenile Gigantosaurus, separated from its herd by the intricate maze of river channels, was stripping bark from a fallen conifer. It was fat, careless, and perhaps 200 pounds, a substantial calorie packet necessary to fuel Etherid's massive engine. Etherid froze. His stillness was absolute, turning him into a grotesque statue against the tree line. The duck-billed dinosaur drifted closer, unaware that it had wandered into the kill zone of the planet's largest aerial predator. When Etherid struck, it was not with a roar, but with a rush of displaced air. He didn't just bite, he lunged with his entire body. The 9-foot beak snapped shut around the juvenile's neck with the force of a hydraulic press. The crunch of bone was sickeningly loud in the humid afternoon silence. The struggle was brief. Etherid swallowed thickly, forcing the massive chunk of meat down a gullet designed to accommodate prey hole. But the kill had made noise. From the dense ferns nearby came a low, resonant troom, the territorial vibration of a large theropod. Etherid's head snapped up. He was exposed. He was heavy with food. He had to leave the earth immediately. This was the most dangerous moment of his life. Two-fly, a creature weighing nearly 550 pounds, cannot simply flap and rise. He needed an explosion. Etherid crouched low, coiling his massive triceps and leg muscles like organic steel springs. He rocked back, then threw his entire body weight forward onto his folded wing. With a screech of exertion, he vaulted into the air. It was a violent, quadrupedal launch, hurling himself 10 feet upward. In that split second of weightlessness, the massive leather sails snapped open with the sound of a cracking whip. Downstroke, the air groaned under the pressure. Upstroke, he gained another 10 feet. Below him, the jaws of a subadult T-Rex snapped shut on empty air, missing his trailing feet by inches. Etherid beat his wings furiously, burning precious energy to escape the gravity trap, rising higher and higher until the furious roar of the grounded predator faded into the distance. He was safe. He was skyborne. Chapter 2. The Highway of Heat. At 15,000 feet, the prehistoric world below transformed into an abstract painting of greens and browns, veined with the shimmering silver of winding rivers. Up here, the air was thin, cool, and belonged entirely to consistency. In flight was his new imperative. Flapping his 38-foot wings continuously was metabolically impossible. He would burn through his recent meal in an hour. Instead, Etherid was a master of energy conservation. He was a living glider, a sailplane made of muscle and membrane. He didn't fight the air. Rode Italiano. He was searching for invisible pillars of power. Thermals. The afternoon sun baked the darker patches of the landscape-exposed rock faces, stretches of dark soil causing columns of hot air to rise rapidly into the upper atmosphere. Etherid's inner ear and sensitive wing membranes could detect these subtle shifts in air pressure and temperature. He found a massive thermal rising from a scorched area of forest fire debris. Entering the column, he banked sharply. He locked his shoulder joints, extending his wings rigidly, and began to circle. He rose effortlessly, an elevator powered by the sun, 10 feet a second. 20. The landscape widened beneath him, revealing the vast, shallow inland sea that split the continent in two. But the sky was not empty. As he crested 20,000 feet, nearing the top of the thermal, he spotted another silhouette. It was Kale, a younger male. Quetzalcoatlus. Kale was slightly smaller, perhaps only a 34-foot span, but he was aggressive and desperate to claim prime territory. He was circling in the same thermal, higher up, placing him in the dominant position. In the world of the Azure Giants, combat was rarely physical. If their fragile wing bones collided at speed, both would spiral to their deaths. Their battles were psychological, fought with positioning and intimidation. Etherid needed this thermal to cross the treacherous stretch of the inland sea ahead. He couldn't let the upstart push him out. He widened his throat sac, a patch of bright red skin flashing against his pale underside, and let out a sound that felt like tearing metal, a clattering, guttural shriek that reverberated through the thin air. Kale responded, diving slightly to disrupt the airflow over Ethelred's wings. Ethelred felt the sickening lurch of turbulence, his right wing dipping dangerously. He had to correct instantly, flexing his wing finger to alter the camber of the membrane, regaining lift. Instead of yielding, Etherid turned into the dive. He didn't attack Kale directly. He attacked the space Kale wanted to occupy. He drove upward, his massive beak slicing the air like the prow of a battleship, cutting off Kale's turning radius. The sheer size of Etherid, the ancient scarring on his beak, and the unwavering trajectory spooked the younger male. Kale broke formation. He peeled away from the thermal, sacrificing altitude to avoid the collision, diving toward a lesser updraft miles away. Etherid reclaimed the apex. He continued to circle, rising higher until the air was freezing cold, preparing for the long, dangerous glide across the glittering expanse of the western interior seaway. Chapter 3. The Blue Desert. The consistency of the glide was hypnotic, but deceptive. 3 hours had passed since Etherid left the safety of the thermal over the mainland. Now, below him, there was only water, a vast, turquoise expanse that stretched to a hazy horizon. This was the western interior seaway, a shallow, warm ocean teeming with life, none of it friendly to a creature built for the air. Etherid hated the water. While some smaller pterosaurs were adapted for diving, Quetzalcoatlus was too heavily built, his wings too long and unwieldy for water takeoffs. If he landed out here, he would drown, or worse. He was using ground effect now, skimming just 20 feet above the rolling waves, utilizing the cushion of air trapped between his wings and the water's surface to save energy. It was efficient, but risky. A sudden rogue wave could snare a wingtip. The water below him was clear, revealing a terrifying depth. He saw shadows moving beneath the surface, massive shapes that made the land predators look tame. Schools of fish the size of tuna erupted from the water in panicked frenzies. They were being hunted. A dark shape, Ixaly, 50 feet long, paralleled Etheld's flight path beneath the waves. It was a mosasaur, the undisputed leviathan of the sea. Its crocodile-like head was enormous, filled with conical teeth designed to crush bone and shell. It sensed the shadow moving above it. Etherid felt a primal spike of adrenaline. He needed altitude, but he was energy depleted. He flapped hard, 4 powerful strokes that lifted him 50 feet up. Just as the water's surface exploded, the mosasaur breached. It was a terrifying display of raw power, tons of reptilian muscle launching vertically from the sea. Its jaws snapped shut with the sound of a thunderclap, occupying the space where Ethelred had been seconds before. Spray-soaked Etherid's tail feathers, heavy and cold. He beat his wings frantically, burning reserves he didn't have. Climbing away from the snapping jaws of the blue desert, the mosasaur crashed back into the water, a disappointed god of the deep. Ethelred was safe from the immediate threat, but he was exhausted. His flight muscles burned with lactic acid. The sun was beginning to dip lower, painting the sky in bruised purples and reds. An aided land, he needed a thermal. He needed consistency to return to his world. Ahead, through the haze, a dark line appeared. An island chain. It wasn't his home territory, but it was solid ground. He angled toward it, his breath coming in ragged gasps, engaging in a shallow, desperate glide toward salvation. Chapter 4. The Island of Giants. The landing was ugly, exhausted and battling crosswinds coming off the island's volcanic peaks. Ethelred didn't so much land as crash stall into a soft, sandy beach. His massive feet hit the sand, and he stumbled forward onto his wing knuckles. His beak furrowing the damp earth. He lay there for several minutes, his massive ribcage heaving, the membranes of his wings trembling with fatigue. He was alive. He folded his wings tight against his body, instantly transforming from a sky-spanning giant into the towering, stalk-like pedestrian. This island was unfamiliar territory. The air smelled different sulfur mixed with the rotting vegetation of a dense, jungle interior. He needed water first, then food. He stalked toward a tree line where a freshwater stream emptied into the sea. Ethelred drank deeply, scooping gallons of water into his throat sac. As he lifted his head, water cascading from his beak, he realized he was not alone. The beach was a nesting ground, not for pterosaurs, but for turtles, giant Archelon sea turtles. Hundreds of nests were clustered near the dunes, and where there were eggs, there were scavengers. Emerging from the jungle were 3 Dromaeosaurus raptors. They were Dacateraptors, large for their kind, nearly 16 feet long, covered in patterned feathers that blended with the shadows. They were swift, intelligent pack hunters, and they saw the exhausted Ethelred not as a predator, but as a potential mountain of meat. They fanned out, chittering to one another, their sickle-clawed feet kicking up sand. They knew he was tired. They had seen his clumsy landing. Ethelred drew himself up to his full 18-foot height. He snapped his 9-foot beak, loud enough to echo off the jungle wall. He was no defenseless herbivore. He was the apex predator of the skies, and he was lethal on the ground. The lead raptor leaped, aiming for the vulnerable membrane of the folded wing. It was a mistake. Ethelred didn't retreat. He lunged forward with the speed of a striking cobra. His beak, harder than bone and sharper than flint, met the raptor in midair. The impact was devastating. The beak skewered the raptor through the torso. Ethelred whipped his head sideways, flinging the dying thief 50 feet down the beach like a discarded doll. The remaining 2 raptors skidded to a halt. The consistency of the hunt had changed. The prey was fighting back with overwhelming force. Ethelred took a menacing step toward them, clattering his beak again. The raptors, realizing the caloric cost of this fight was too high, turned and fled back into the jungle shadows. Ethelred stood alone on the beach, the undisputed master of the shoreline. He turned his attention to the turtle nests. He dug up a clutch of leathery eggs, swallowing them whole, replenishing his energy. He would rest here tonight, standing guard over the sea, and tomorrow, when the sun heated the volcanic slopes, he would ride the thermals home. Chapter 5. The Eternal Apex. 2 days later, Ethelred circled high above his home territory, a sprawling region of braided river systems and towering rock formations inland from the coast. The familiar landscape was a balm to his exhausted system. He drifted toward the highest plateau in the region, a flat-topped mesa, inaccessible to the large ground predators. This was his citadel. As he descended, engaging in a steep spiral, he saw her. His mate, Bala, was perched on the edge of the cliff. She was slightly larger than him, a magnificent specimen of their species. Between her feet, carefully nestled in a mound of rotting vegetation meant to incubate it, was a single, precious egg. It was large, leathery, and contained the future of their genetic line. Ethelred landed smoothly this time, a gentle touchdown that barely kicked up dust. Vala greeted him with soft, clicking sounds, rubbing her beak against his neck. It was a gesture of bonding, a reaffirmation of their partnership in this harsh world. He disgorged a portion of the fish he had caught during the final leg of his journey, offering it to her. She needed the energy to guard the nest. Ethelred moved to the edge of the cliff, looking out over the world, he ruled. The sun was setting again, casting long, dramatic shadows across the prehistoric landscape. Below, herds of horned dinosaurs moved like ants. A tyrannosaur roared somewhere in the distance, a sound of fury that could not reach him up here. He felt a profound sense of consistency in this cycle. Hunt, fly, survive, reproduce. His kind had mastered the air in a way no creature before them had, and no creature after them ever would to this scale. They were the perfect biological machines for their environment. As the last light of the Cretaceous day faded, Ethelred spread his wings, the 38-foot span catching the final golden updrafts. He didn't need to fly. He just wanted to. He stepped off the cliff edge, instantly becoming one with the sky. He soared in silent circles above his mate and his unborn offspring, a dark, cruciform shape against the dying light. The world below was violent and changing, but up here, Ethelred was eternal, the shadow that conquered the sun, the undisputed emperor of the skies. His reign, it seemed, would last forever. Yet, far above him, visible only as a faint streak amongst the stars, a rock the size of a mountain was hurtling silently through the vacuum of space, destined to break the consistency of this ancient world forever. But for tonight, the sky belonged to Ethelred.